Hi again, welcome to my channel. I um I put out a video yesterday and I'm just kind of feeling a little strange about it. I shared a little bit of my story there, some sexual abuse story, and I haven't really, I guess, put that out in public in this type of format. So it feels a little strange, it feels vulnerable. And I was just kind of working through that yesterday after I posted it. I rewatched it, and then I just was during my meditation practice this morning, just rethinking all of that, and just recognizing how vulnerable that is, and how that is exactly how I want to do my channel, and share myself and put myself out there into the world. So I'm um, society has us in so many little boxes and how we're supposed to look and how we're supposed to behave, what we're supposed to say, how we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to do, what we're supposed to talk about. And I'm just, trying to break out of those limitations and constructs and systems, strange belief systems that I'm holding. So part of that is just feeling like I need to have it all perfected and have it all together, and I absolutely don't. I have quite a lifetime of wisdom accrued, but that doesn't look like perfection, whatever that means. We don't even know what that means. I think that's part of the beauty of social media, and YouTube coming out. We're seeing a lot more people getting more vulnerable and getting more real. And I mean, there's the flip side too, where people just have this perfect persona and they're always saying the right thing, and you know, um, but then there's also this side that is just more a little bit free flow and like, yeah, here I am letting it all hang out. So that's definitely more the side I'm on. So um, yeah, a couple of things came up in regards to that video. I was talking about disenfranchised grief, and that is, I don't know if I explained enough what that is and how that pertains to sexual abuse. But there's so much loss that comes along with that, and it's just oftentimes not recognized in our society. And I know I touched on that a little bit in the beginning, but I kind of got off into my story, so I wanted to revisit that. Disenfranchised grief. And disenfranchised grief is a grief that is not recognized by society, is not honored, is a grief that we have to deal with in private, and just isn't valued or recognized. And I know I've said that word, but there's so much loss that comes along with sexual abuse and sexual trauma, and I think it's really important to recognize that and hold space for ourselves and have conversations around that, because it's rich and complicated and complex, and we can't even necessarily pinpoint and put words to the losses and the grief that comes along with that. But the important part is that we just recognize that there is loss, and there's lots of things that we'll never get back. We can work through our healing process, but that doesn't mean we'll be restored to where we were before. And it's interesting because I trust, my view is that we come into our lifetimes having chosen already what we will be experiencing, and choosing the lives that we come into. And I didn't always, have that understanding of things, and was definitely more in a kind of victim consciousness. Like, why did this happen to me? Why do I have to deal with this? And this isn't fair. This isn't right. And not recognizing that it was a part of my path that I chose to move through and to glean the wisdom from these experiences. So in my healing journey, it hasn't been about returning back to a time prior to any abusive situations, because I know I came in to have those experiences for a purpose, and that part of that purpose is so that I can discuss it and share about it with you, and so we can walk each other through all of this, and move through it. And that is just part of how our soul learns lessons. And You know, there's many aspects to that, and I don't have all of the answers, but I do trust that I did choose my life, and I chose to come in with the experiences, to have the challenging experiences I have had, like the adoption. You know, I know I came in to learn a lot about grief, and that is huge. That lesson right there was huge for me. You know, there's many ways to learn about grief. I could have experienced a lot of deaths in my life, which I have not. You know, I've had a few, and I've spoken about them in previous videos, I believe. But my big one was the loss of my biological mother at birth, and so that just, you know, my whole life was kind of revolved around that. Even to the point, I mean, the first half was grieving and going through so much trauma and anger and rage and sorrow and depression and all that came along with that experience. You know, the drug addiction, the abusive relationships, you know, the homelessness, being in jail because of the drug addiction. You know, it took me to some dark places, but I know that was so I had the understanding, and I could come out the other side and then utilize those experiences and that compassion, that empathy, having empathy for others when they're going through their own journey, through their grief, through their loss, through their anger, through their rage, through their addiction, through unhealthy relationship patterns, through a low sense of self-worth, moving to the other side of that journey. I know that everything I went through is just serving my being of service now, and that's how I make sense of that. And I trust that. I know that, actually. It's not even just making sense of it. I understand that is the way it works now. So these experiences of sexual abuse, you know, I trust that they were part of my path as well, so that I could understand that aspect of human experience, you know, and yeah, it's interesting. It opens up so many more questions, doesn't it? I mean, this is a complicated, complex experience, being in a human body, and the further we go along, the more that we learn and the more answers that we get. But you know, until we're like fully enlightened, I don't think we're going to get all the answers, and many of us won't get fully enlightened in this lifetime. So we're just going to have to keep moving along and working with the concepts and views and belief systems that support us the most in our journey and our healing process. There's a little siren going off there. So for me, it's definitely moving out of victim consciousness, because staying in that belief system doesn't serve me at all. It didn't allow me to move forward. It didn't allow me to live with any joy or you know, like really grow spiritually, when I was just staying in that blame and anger, shame, negativity, loss, resentment, bitterness. You know, that was just tearing me down. And it kept me in the drug addiction. You know, it kept me in really unhealthy patterns and unhealthy behaviors as a way to work through or to deal with the pain and the anger that I was experiencing. You know, I needed to numb out, because I was just in such a place of suffering, and I couldn't make sense of, why did my mother leave me? Why was I in abusive relationships? Why the drug addiction? Why did life suck so bad? You know, why couldn't I get a handle on anything? And you know, so I just continued to numb out. And then when the drugs were gone, I found other ways too, you know, TV, drugs, I moved into alcohol. Then I was drinking for like 10 years, and which was a healthier place. At least I kind of moved up in my life. But then I was like watching TV all the time, binging television and eating unhealthy foods. And so there was, you know, plenty of other ways I found to numb out, and we do that. So But moving out of that victim consciousness and like really getting on a spiritual path. And when I quit the drinking, of course, everything just started opening up for me. And when I started taking responsibility for my own choices in life, and for the fact that I chose to come into this life, that changed everything for me. It was just like, oh, yeah, if I can see it like that, if I look at it through that lens, then I can start to appreciate all that I've learned, all that I can give back to others, all the wisdom that I did learn from that. I can start to look at a bigger picture and tap into bigger energies beyond just myself and my own little experience of suffering. You look at how I fit into the world and how I'm everything is perfection, and I am perfection. I, in this little body, in this little experience that I'm having, is absolute perfection. And that is not to bypass, the still the emotional challenges that come with being in a human body and in a human lifetime and experience. But it was very empowering to let go of that victim consciousness and start owning our life, start owning our choices, and owning that we are divine, and that everything is divine, and that the energies here on this planet fall on a huge spectrum from fear-based to love-based, and we are just kind of in it. And how do we start taking responsibility for where our own energy falls on that spectrum? And when we move out of the victim consciousness, we start moving more towards the higher vibe frequencies, more towards love and joy and freedom. When we're stuck in here and when we're attached to it, because people can get really attached to that. Like, no, I was wronged. Somebody did this to me. I'm pissed off. It's like, sure, that's totally valid. That's great. I get it. I so fucking get it, because I was in that for a long time. Like, I was pissed off. Why did this happen to me? And I'm not going to let go of that. That only kept me down here in this low vibe shit. It just hurt. It just kept hurting myself. It kept me in the addiction. It kept me in the ways to numb out. And that it just wasn't helpful. It just wasn't helpful. I mean, sure, it's a valid way to work with that. It's absolutely valid. And yeah, we can be pissed off. And I don't think like, don't be angry, but we can also be angry and recognize like, okay, I need to let that go because it's not serving me anymore. I'm not gonna have a good, healthy life if I stay stuck in those energies of resentment and blame and anger. And I do get it. I do get it. And it's not easy to let go of that and move over here, but it's so worth it. Once we start letting go of the attachment to that anger and resentment and rage and start moving over to a more empowering, higher vibe frequencies for ourselves. It's transformative. It's a total game changer. When I started taking responsibility and recognizing like, oh wow, I chose this. I came in for these experiences. It's a completely different way to relate to my life. It's a completely different way, and it's extremely empowering. And I was able to move away from these unhealthy, destructive patterns of anger and rage, resentment, and numb out over into more freedom and ease and joy and more connection with people, greater spiritual growth and awakenings, openings into the bigger picture without being so attached to this little experience over here. I was opening myself up to a much wider range of experiences and connections with people on different viewpoints, healthier belief systems that supported my growth and my evolution versus keeping me down here in this low vibe frequency, So I am really passionate about that. But to bring it back around to the disenfranchised grief of these experiences, like my adoption, that is not supported in our society. People are just like, oh, yay, you got adopted. That's so awesome. It's like, ooh, yeah, okay. But that completely negates the horribly traumatic pain of losing being separated from my birth mother, from my birth family. Like, it's not so easy. It's just like, ugh. So that was really challenging, and that was another piece of the adoption, not being supported around it, and people just absolutely not understanding why I wasn't just happy to be in a new family. Why didn't that go well? What's wrong with you? um, so that's around the sexual abuse and the sexual trauma. Since we don't get to talk about it, there's so much loss that goes along with it. It's not just about the incident. There's so much loss of sense of self, loss of trust, loss of dreams, relationships, connections, confidence. There's so much, and just reliving the trauma. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. So yeah, any way that we can honor that grief, honor those losses, and recognize them, and work to move, to the higher vibe frequencies, and not stay in that low vibe victim consciousness energy, is just it's hugely transformative and empowering. And again, I'm not saying that this is an easy thing to do. It's a lifelong journey, and it's but I just want to offer that up, create containers for us to have these discussions, and honor the path, honor the journey, honor the journey. But yeah, important to take responsibility for moving ourselves out of the low vibes, and again, agreed, it's not so easy, and it is valid to be angry and resentful and hurt and sorrowful, and but there's so much more empowerment and ease that comes with moving, trying to work our way out of that victim consciousness. So I think I will leave it at that today. That kind of went in a different direction than I was anticipating, but I think that kind of came up because in the video yesterday I put out, it was I was talking about one of the abusive situations I had, where the guy went to prison, after it was assaulting me, sexual assault or abuse. I don't remember exactly what the charge was, but it was 4 counts of sexual, I think, abuse 1 and 2. But anyways, he went to prison, and I was talking about not being horribly traumatized in that specific experience. I was in some other ones that I was in, but and just the strangeness of that, like my feeling like I should have been more traumatized, but I wasn't. And I think maybe just not being, I don't know, it got me thinking about the victim consciousness piece. And but I recognized that I had some weird shame, I guess, around not feeling traumatized by that situation. And when I shared about it yesterday, it felt a little strange to me to be putting that out there. So and I didn't know how that would be received, but I was just like, well, that was my experience, so I don't really need to judge it. But because I already have spent plenty of time analyzing that and picking that one apart. So but it did get me contemplating the victim consciousness, and just honoring also what does come up for us, and what does arise from these experiences. And that's what I want to give voice to and honor, and open up dialogue around, that again, there's no right way or wrong way to do this. I'm just sharing what has worked for me, or what my process was, so again, just trying to be real, put it out there, and share, and let you know you're not alone in anything that is coming up for you as you move through these experiences of maybe it's sexual abuse, maybe it's other types of grief that are disenfranchised, that aren't supported by society. Like for me, it was the adoption, maybe the endings of relationships that aren't supported by society. Another type of disenfranchised grief is, certain types of relationships that just aren't recognized and held. And so if there's a loss around those, that's not supported either. Like I'm thinking right now, this is a little bit different, but there was a woman I knew from a writing group that I was in who I just didn't know her very well, but I heard her read her writings every week in this women's writing group. They were very sad and sorrowful, but gorgeous writing. It was really beautiful, deep, moving, powerful writing. And you could really feel her pain in there, but I didn't really understand how much pain she was in. She ended up dying by suicide. She took her life. So that explained, the depth of the sorrow. I mean, it was a lot deeper than I even realized, but I felt really strange after that, and I mourned that loss, even though I didn't know this person, and I didn't know, like, do I have any right to grieve this person? And I should have said something and reached out to this person. Clearly they were in pain, but this is another one of those types of losses that isn't really necessarily recognized or supported or I just didn't know how to grieve it because it wasn't, I didn't know her, I didn't really know her. So what right did I have to grieve? So maybe that was my own disenfranchisement of that type of loss. So again, there's so many human experiences that we have, and we weren't given any handbooks. So anything that we feel or move through, any emotions that come up, it's just important to honor them and validate them for ourselves and know that whatever we are feeling is the right thing to be feeling for ourselves. I mean, we can work with them if we're, like we were talking about earlier, if we're stuck in these low vibe things and we recognize that it's detrimental to ourselves, it's very healthy to try to move out of those and find a new way for ourselves. But we don't need to shame and shun ourselves for having those low vibe frequencies and being stuck in them maybe for a while. Maybe we need to be stuck in anger for a little bit, maybe that's just where we're at, and that's totally fine. I'm not trying to say there's anything wrong with that, so I hope that is coming across. It's not it at all. I'm just really empowered and inspired to share my story with people and help people to see that, yes, it's okay to be there, but it's also okay to move out of there. It's really okay to move out of there. I know I felt like, I think that's what, maybe talking about that, that sexual abuse experience, that I wasn't stuck in a trauma phase. I wasn't stuck in a dark place around that. I mean, there were some things going on, but it wasn't what I thought it should look like, and that's okay too. So I need to honor that for myself and not shame myself for it not being what I thought it should look like or what somebody else maybe thinks it should look like. I think that's what I was contemplating this morning. Like, when people watch that video and go, oh, well, you should have been in a much darker place around that. Like, but I wasn't, and that's okay. So maybe that's the point I'm trying to get at. And I know it's maybe taken a roundabout way because I'm kind of working through this as I'm talking. So, because this stuff is complex, but we just need to honor our emotions and honor what's coming up for us and where we're at. And if we're finding it troublesome, find ways to move out of it, and look to other people to support us if that's an option. Part of the disenfranchised grief is often it's not an option. So that's why I'm opening this up, so we can talk about it more and honor our feelings, whatever they are, whatever experience we're having around all of this. So I think I've said that enough times. You'll notice I repeat myself a lot. So that's it's just part of my process. So maybe I finally got to a point where I was trying to get to through all of this to to honor our experience and support ourselves, be compassionate for ourselves as we move through wherever we're at, and yes, know that we can move out of things too. So we don't have to stay stuck. We don't have to stay stuck in anger and resentment and bitterness. We can move out of that. We absolutely can. And we can honor it, and we can move back into it. We can move out, and we can move back, you know. This is not a linear process. That spiral we talked about yesterday, you know, we can move beyond something and then find that a little bit later we have to come back around and revisit it, which is what I'm doing right now, is revisiting this with a really interesting experience around it. I don't know, as I'm talking it through, it's been really interesting. But yeah, so you know, that's how I am with my adoption. I have done so much freaking work on that loss. I have done so much freaking work, you know, and really come out the other side of it. But that doesn't mean there's not times where I just get lost in the, like, or I don't get lost in it, but I revisit, like, wow, that's fucking painful, you know. It's really painful to connect with those energies again, you know, even though they're not the same, they're not as intense, you know, but it will always be a part of my experience. But I no longer have to be lost in it. That's the point, you know. I can just be like, okay, I'm over here with it, and then it's just like occasionally go like, wow, yeah, that's still, there's a lot of pain there, you know, but that's okay. And then I'm just back over here. I just honor it, recognize it, like, yep, there it is. But I don't have to dive into it anymore, you know. I don't have to dive in there and swim around and, you know, get lost in it and just like drowned in it, you know. I can just revisit and go, yes, that's part of my experience, and I have so much more wisdom and understanding of how to work with those energies now. So now I can just mostly stay over here and integrate, you know, integrate as well. There's like, I don't have to shun or shame it, you know, like low vibes is part of our experience. It's absolutely part of our experience. We're not going to stay over here all the time. We are absolutely not. And if we get stuck in that idea and think that we are, we're going to be in for some real rude awakenings, because it's just not real. That's not reality. Ideally, it's kind of like a middle thing, you know, we're just really learning how to work with those energies in a much healthier way. So we don't get, yeah, it's not healthy. I don't want to say that I'm just like high on love and light all the time, because that's not true. That's not true at all. But I'm more at this end of the spectrum, you know, now, and in a healthy, grounded way. So, you know, we live here on this planet. We're on the earth. We're in these human bodies. We're not meant to stay in, like, you know, out here all the time. It's just it's an integration. It's all of the things. So we're coming up here on half an hour. I think I'll stop talking there. I can get going. I love to share. I really love it. So thanks for watching again. This has just been a really interesting process to move through, and you know, like, comment, subscribe, connect. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear about your experience. I know I'm kind of at like a little baby channel right now. I have 11 subscribers, so thank you. Hi to my 11 subscribers. I'm so grateful for your presence, and I just love putting this out there. I love talking and sharing, and I'm grateful for anybody that witnesses my journey or connects with me around this, or is inspired by this, or maybe feels a shift or an aha moment, or doesn't feel quite so alone in the world, you know, listening to this and hearing. So yeah, I would love to hear from you. And I will, you know, I have a website, I have an email list, I do many events every month. I do healing sessions. I have programs. There's a lot of ways to work with this energy, work with these belief systems, work with the victim consciousness to move our way out of it. So I'm not just here to talk about it. We have ways to work with this. We have powerful tools, energy healing, sound healing, all of these things, the writing, the psychoeducation. There's so many ways, holding support, working with the ancestral energies and the clearing those, and the inherited grief, the inherited trauma, ancestral, collective, intergenerational, all the stuff we're working with. We're working at our own personal energy levels. How do we work with our energy body in a healthy way? So all of these things, we're not just here to talk about it. I know I kind of forget to bring this part up, and I'm learning, so thank you for bearing with me. But yeah, we have tools, and that's what I'm here to do also, is to help support you in your process, with these sessions, with programs, with a lot of modalities. So we can move our way out of this. We can move out of that victim consciousness, and we can move into healthier ways and healthier belief systems. We can release a lot of that unhealthy belief systems, and a lot that's come on from society and what we've grown up in. So yeah, when you're ready for that, let me know, reach out. I'm here. So, and I'm super passionate about doing this work because, it's been a lifetime. It's been a lifetime, and I found some great things that work, and I'm excited about sharing them with you. So yeah, check out my website, get on my mailing list, like and subscribe here, all the things. Send me an email. You can contact me through my website. Come visit an event. I look forward to connecting with you.